There's something about old cars that modern machines just can't capture. Today's vehicles may be packed with digital screens, driver aids, and complex electronics. But in the process, much of the raw soul of driving has been lost. Decades ago, engineers built cars with a different philosophy: mechanical honesty, direct steering, and an intimate connection between driver and road. These cars weren't trying to be rolling computers. They were built to drive, to feel alive, and to give drivers control in its purest form. While modern vehicles might be quicker, safer, and more refined, many older cars still deliver a driving experience that feels far superior. From the sound of an engine with character, to steering that communicates every detail of the road, these classics remind us what driving is supposed to be about. So let's count down 10 old cars that, even today, drive better than many modern ones. Number 10. Volkswagen Beetle. The Volkswagen Beetle is not the fastest car on this list. In fact, by today's standards, it's slow, quirky, and feels underpowered compared to almost any modern compact. But what makes the Beetle remarkable is not speed, it's connection. Few cars have ever been built with such simplicity and charm, and that's exactly why driving one still feels better than many modern vehicles. The Beetle's air-cooled engine, sitting in the rear, produced a distinct whirring sound that became as iconic as the car's rounded shape. Its light clutch, simple gearbox, and direct steering offered a mechanical honesty that's missing in many of today's cars, overloaded with electric power steering and computerized aids. You could feel the road through the wheel, hear every mechanical click, and know exactly what the car was doing beneath you. Another thing that makes the Beetle stand out is its personality. Modern compacts are built to be efficient and quiet, but the Beetle never tried to hide what it was. It had character in every sense: the way it vibrated at idle, the unmistakable engine note, and the friendly design that seemed to smile at you. It wasn't just transportation, it was an experience. For decades, the Beetle carried families, students, and travelers across the world, proving that cars didn't need to be complicated to be lovable. Even with modest horsepower, it was fun to throw around corners. The light body made handling playful, and the simplicity made it easy to repair. Drivers today still find joy in its straightforward, unfiltered feel, something no touch-screen-laden compact can reproduce. Most importantly, the Beetle reminds us that driving isn't always about speed or luxury. Sometimes, it's about a car that makes you smile every time you turn the key. That's why this humble people's car earns its place among the greats. It drove better than many modern cars, not because of performance, but because of the joy and connection it gave to those behind the wheel. Number 9. Alfa Romeo Spider. The Alfa Romeo Spider is a car that shows how driving can be an emotional experience. It wasn't about being the fastest on the road, nor the most powerful. What made the Spider so special was the way it connected the driver to every moment of the journey. From the very first turn of the key, you knew you were in something designed with passion. The lightweight body and rear-wheel drive setup gave the Spider a nimble character. On winding roads, it danced gracefully, with steering that spoke directly to your hands. The suspension wasn't overly stiff, yet it gave just enough feedback to keep the driver engaged. Compared to many modern cars that rely on electronic assists and isolated cabins, the Spider offered purity. You felt each gear shift, each corner, each stretch of open road. Of course, no Alfa Romeo is complete without mentioning its sound. The Spider's twin-cam engine produced a raspy, eager note that begged to be pushed higher. It was a car that invited drivers to roll down the top, let the wind in, and enjoy the soundtrack of motoring. It wasn't about numbers on a performance sheet. It was about the sensation of freedom and the raw pleasure of driving. Another aspect that separates the Spyder from today's cars is its simplicity. Modern vehicles drown you in screens and technology, but the Spyder kept things elemental. A driver's seat, a steering wheel, and the open sky above. That was all you needed to feel alive behind the wheel. Its classic design and Italian flair only added to the romance, making it as beautiful to look at as it was to drive. Even decades later, enthusiasts still praise the Spyder for offering an experience that few cars, even modern sports cars, can replicate. It wasn't perfect. Alpha reliability jokes exist for a reason, but that was part of its charm. It was human, imperfect, and yet unforgettable. Driving one today still feels better than slipping into many modern machines that, despite all their advancements, can't match the Spyder's soul. Number 8. Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. The Corvette Stingray is often remembered for its bold looks, but those who have driven one know it's far more than a pretty face. This American icon blended muscle, balance, and style in a way that still feels unmatched, even when compared to today's high-tech performance cars. Slip behind the wheel, and the Stingray immediately made the driver feel like part of something powerful. The long hood, the low stance, and the burly V8 engine up front created a sense of drama before the car even moved. Once on the road, it was raw and unfiltered. The steering was heavy yet communicative, giving a direct feel of the pavement beneath you. The ride wasn't cushioned with layers of electronics or driver aids. It was all you, your hands, and the car working together. What really stood out was the balance. Unlike many muscle cars of its era, the Stingray wasn't just about straight-line speed. Its independent rear suspension gave it agility and handling that could keep up with European rivals. On twisting roads, it delivered a mix of stability and responsiveness that felt almost ahead of its time. It was a car that rewarded skill, and driving it well felt like an accomplishment in itself. Then there was the sound. Few things matched the roar of an American V8 echoing through the cabin. It wasn't refined, it was alive. Modern Corvettes may be faster and more advanced, but they sometimes lose that visceral edge that made the Stingray so thrilling. Here, every gear change and every press of the throttle was met with a surge of noise and excitement. Beyond performance, the Corvette Stingray symbolized freedom. It was the kind of car that made every drive feel like an event, whether it was a cruise down a coastal highway or a blast down a back road. That sense of excitement, of connection to the machine, remains something modern sports cars often struggle to replicate. Even today, sitting in a Stingray reminds you why people fell in love with driving in the first place. It wasn't just transportation. It was a statement, a thrill, and a joy all rolled into one. And that's why it still drives better than many modern machines. Number 7. Honda S2000. The Honda S2000 is one of those rare cars that feels like it was built for drivers first and everyone else second. While it came out much later than many of the classics on this list, it still captured the spirit of old-school driving better than many modern sports cars do today. The highlight of the S2000 was its engine, a high-revving, naturally aspirated four-cylinder that seemed to defy physics. Spinning all the way up to 9,000 RPM, it begged drivers to push harder, rewarding them with a soundtrack that was both mechanical and exhilarating. Modern turbocharged engines may offer more torque and efficiency, but they often lack the drama and character that the S2000 delivered every time you buried the throttle. Its gearbox is another reason it still feels superior. The 6-speed manual was short, crisp, and widely regarded as one of the best manual transmissions ever made. Every shift felt precise, almost like flicking a switch, and it connected the driver to the machine in a way few cars ever have. Handling was equally sharp. With perfect weight distribution and a rigid chassis, the S2000 cornered with poise and precision. You didn't need electronic stability systems to keep it in check. Its balance and feedback encouraged skilled driving. It was a car that taught you how to be better behind the wheel, punishing sloppy inputs, but rewarding smooth, controlled driving with unmatched satisfaction. Then there's the feeling of simplicity. The cabin was driver-focused, uncluttered by distractions, and designed to keep your attention on the road. Unlike modern cars overloaded with screens and touch controls, the S2000 gave you only what you needed: a wheel, a shifter, and the open road. Even today, enthusiasts consider the S2000 one of the purest sports cars ever made. It wasn't about comfort or luxury, it was about extracting joy from every corner, every shift, and every high-revving scream of the engine. That purity makes it timeless. In a world where sports cars are increasingly filtered through electronics and software, the Honda S2000 remains proof that driving excitement comes not from gadgets, but from mechanical perfection and a driver's touch. Number 6. Ford Mustang. Few cars embody the spirit of American driving quite like the Ford Mustang. From the very beginning, it wasn't just a car, it was a movement. The Mustang brought performance and style to the masses, and behind the wheel, it offered an experience that modern versions, despite being faster and more refined, can't always replicate. What makes the classic Mustang special is its rawness. The moment you fire up the V8, you're greeted with a deep, throaty rumble that sends a shiver down your spine. It's not muted by electronics or tuned to meet modern regulations. It's pure, mechanical music. Pressing the accelerator felt like unleashing raw energy, something today's cars often smooth out for comfort. On the road, the Mustang wasn't about surgical precision or perfect balance. It was about feeling alive. The steering was heavy, sometimes unpredictable, but it kept you engaged. Every bump in the pavement, every tug of the wheel, every roar of the engine reminded you that you were in command of something powerful and untamed. Driving one was never passive. It demanded your attention, and that's what made it so thrilling. The styling played its part too. Long hood, short deck, aggressive stance. The Mustang looked fast, even when standing still. And when you were behind the wheel, people noticed. It carried a presence that modern cars, no matter how advanced, struggle to capture. But perhaps the biggest reason the Mustang still feels better than many modern cars is the sense of freedom it gave. It wasn't about lap times or technology. It was about the joy of an open road, the sound of a V8, and the wind in your hair. It was a car that turned ordinary drives into events. Sure, today's Mustangs are quicker, safer, and packed with features, but that unfiltered, visceral experience of the originals can't be replicated. Driving one feels like stepping into an era where cars weren't trying to be perfect. They were trying to be fun. The Mustang is proof that sometimes imperfection is what makes a car truly unforgettable. And that's why it still stands tall as one of the greats that drives better, in spirit and feel, than many modern machines. Number 5. Jaguar E-Type. Few cars in history have been able to stir emotions like the Jaguar E-Type. Often described as one of the most beautiful cars ever made, it was more than just a piece of art. It was an experience that drivers could feel with every mile. Enzo Ferrari himself once called it the most beautiful car in the world. But beauty was only part of the story. The real magic happened behind the wheel. The E-Type combined elegance with raw driving excitement. Its long, sweeping hood and low-slung stance made it feel like you were piloting something extraordinary, even before you turned the key. Once in motion, it offered a mix of smooth power and thrilling agility that was rare for its time, and is still rare today. The straight-six engine delivered a distinct growl that felt alive, and unlike modern cars tuned for efficiency, it had a personality of its own. Steering the E-Type was a deeply engaging experience. There were no computers filtering your inputs, no artificial weight added to the wheel. It was direct, pure, and sometimes demanding. But that was the point. It connected the driver to the road in a way that modern cars often fail to do. Every corner became an event, and every open stretch of road an invitation to push a little further. It wasn't just performance, though. It was the sense of occasion. Driving an E-Type made you feel special. The interior, with its aircraft-inspired switches and classic dials, surrounded the driver with character rather than screens. Sliding into the seat felt like stepping into a piece of motoring history. Even today, when modern sports cars are faster, more refined, and far more advanced, the E-Type still manages to deliver a more thrilling drive. That's because it was never about numbers. It was about feeling. It gave drivers the sense of being at one with the car, of controlling something both beautiful and powerful. And that's a sensation technology can't replace. The Jaguar E-Type is not just a car. It's an experience, a reminder that sometimes the soul of driving lies not in perfection, but in passion. That's why it continues to be celebrated as one of the finest driving machines of all time. Number 4. Mercedes-Benz W123. The Mercedes-Benz W123 is proof that sometimes the most rewarding cars aren't the fastest or the flashiest. They're the ones that simply get everything right. Introduced as a mid-size luxury sedan, the W123 quickly earned a reputation for durability, comfort, and balance. And while today's Mercedes models may be filled with touchscreens, turbocharged engines, and endless electronics, the W123 still feels better to drive in many ways. Behind the wheel, the W123 gave drivers a sense of stability and confidence. The steering was direct and predictable, not overly assisted or artificial like many modern systems. The suspension absorbed bumps with ease, yet it never felt disconnected. You could drive it for hours and step out feeling refreshed, not fatigued. A testament to how well it was engineered for real-world roads rather than just test tracks. The build quality of the W123 was legendary. Doors shut with a reassuring thunk, controls felt solid, and every component was designed to last decades. Modern luxury cars often emphasize cutting-edge features, but few are built with the same honesty and attention to durability. Sitting in a W123, you feel the weight of craftsmanship, something that adds to the overall driving experience. Another reason the W123 still drives better than many modern cars is its simplicity. It didn't overwhelm drivers with digital distractions. Everything you needed was within reach, functional and intuitive. This lack of complication meant you could focus entirely on the road, the feel of the car, and the journey itself. The W123 also had a unique character. Whether powered by one of Mercedes's smooth inline sixes or the famously long-lasting diesels, it provided a sense of calm authority. It wasn't a car that shouted or demanded attention, yet it carried itself with dignity. Driving one made you feel secure, steady, and in control. Today, many of these cars are still on the road, clocking hundreds of thousands of miles, often outlasting vehicles built decades later. That reliability, combined with its balanced driving feel, is why enthusiasts still consider the W123 one of the best cars Mercedes ever built. It wasn't about luxury for show. It was about building a car that truly worked, mile after mile, in a way that still feels superior to many modern machines. Number 3. Mazda Miata. The Mazda Miata is often called the most fun you can have on four wheels, and for good reason. While modern cars chase horsepower, technology, and luxury, the Miata focused on something far more important: the joy of driving. It wasn't about being the fastest car on the road, it was about creating an experience that made every drive memorable. The magic of the Miata lies in its simplicity. Lightweight, rear-wheel drive, and perfectly balanced, it gave drivers the sensation of being completely connected to the car. The steering was light yet precise, telling you exactly what the tires were doing. The suspension was tuned not for comfort alone, but for feedback, allowing you to feel the road beneath you. In an era when many modern cars isolate drivers from the outside world, the Miata let you experience it fully. Then there was the engine, not overly powerful, but eager and responsive. It encouraged you to work through the gears, to rev it out, and to enjoy the process of driving rather than just the destination. Pair that with one of the smoothest manual transmissions ever made, and you had a car that made even a trip to the grocery store feel like an adventure. One of the Miata's greatest strengths is accessibility. It wasn't a car reserved for the wealthy or the expert driver. Anyone could get behind the wheel and enjoy it. And that universal charm is why so many people, decades later, still remember their time in a Miata with a smile. The open-top design added to the experience. With the roof down, wind rushing past, and engine humming, it delivered a sense of freedom that few cars can match. It wasn't just about speed. It was about feeling alive, connected, and free on the road. Compared to modern sports cars loaded with driver aids and digital controls, the Miata feels refreshingly pure. It's a reminder that more technology doesn't always make a car better. Sometimes, less truly is more. The Miata endures as a legend, not because of outrageous performance numbers, but because it tapped into the essence of what driving should be: simple, direct, and full of joy. That's why it still drives better, in spirit and connection, than many modern cars. Number 2. Porsche 911 Carrera. The Porsche 911 Carrera is one of the most iconic sports cars ever made, and driving a classic version reveals exactly why it still outshines many modern machines. While newer models are faster, more refined, and filled with advanced technology, the older 911 carries something irreplaceable: raw connection. From the moment you sit behind the wheel, you notice the difference. The seating position is low, The view out over the rounded fenders is unmistakable, and the ignition to the left of the steering wheel reminds you this is a driver's car, built for involvement. Once the flat-six engine roars to life, the sound alone is enough to raise your heartbeat. It's not filtered, not synthesized, but mechanical and real. A reminder that engines once had voices of their own. On the road, the 911 demanded skill. With its rear engine layout, it rewarded precision, but punished mistakes. And yet, that's what made it great. Unlike many modern cars with stability controls and traction systems constantly smoothing out errors, the older 911 put full responsibility in the hands of the driver. The steering was alive, transmitting every detail of the road surface, while the gearbox required deliberate, satisfying movements that made you feel part of the machine. The driving experience was intense, but deeply rewarding. Every corner was an event, every acceleration a thrill. There was no mistaking that you were in a sports car built with passion and purpose. And though today's versions may post quicker lap times, they can feel somewhat distant compared to the immediacy of the older models. What makes the 911 Carrera stand above so many modern cars is the sense of engagement. Driving wasn't just about getting from one place to another. It was about mastering the machine, feeling every gear, every vibration, every surge of power. It was an intimate experience, and one that modern cars, no matter how capable, often struggle to replicate. The 911 Carrera is proof that numbers on a performance sheet aren't everything. What truly matters is how a car makes you feel, and few cars in history have captured the essence of driving as perfectly as this one. Number 1. BMW E33 Series. At the very top of the list sits the BMW E33 Series, a car that has become a benchmark for what true driving pleasure feels like. Long before modern BMWs filled their cabins with touchscreens and digital gimmicks, the E30 was built with a singular purpose: to connect the driver with the road in the purest way possible. What makes the E30 so remarkable is its balance. The car was perfectly proportioned, with rear-wheel drive, a light body, and steering that delivered constant feedback. It didn't overwhelm with power, but it didn't need to. Every input mattered. The way you turned the wheel, the way you pressed the pedals, the way you shifted through the gears. It all worked together in harmony, creating an experience that was intuitive and deeply satisfying. The steering in particular is legendary. Without electronic interference, it was direct, precise, and full of feedback. You could feel the tires communicating through the wheel, giving you confidence and control in every corner. That honesty is something many modern cars, dulled by electronic power assistance, simply can't replicate. Then there's the handling. The E30 was playful, yet composed, rewarding skilled drivers while remaining approachable for anyone willing to learn. On winding back roads, it felt alive, darting into corners with eagerness and exiting with balance and poise. It wasn't just transportation, it was a partner in the driving experience. The engines were equally memorable. From the smooth 4 cylinders to the silky straight 6s, each one had character, offering a soundtrack and power delivery that encouraged spirited driving. Coupled with one of the best manual gearboxes of its era, the E30 delivered involvement at every step. What truly sets it apart, though, is its timelessness. Even today, decades later, the E30 feels engaging in ways that many brand-new cars do not. It proves that driving joy isn't about horsepower figures or electronic systems. It's about purity, balance, and feedback. The BMW E33 series represents the pinnacle of driver-focused design. It's not just one of the best old cars, it's one of the best driving experiences of all time, reminding us that sometimes the simplest approach creates the most lasting impact. Looking back at these 10 cars, one thing becomes clear. Driving used to be about more than technology or speed. It was about connection, character, and the way a car made you feel every time you sat behind the wheel. These machines weren't perfect by modern standards. Some were noisy, some demanded effort, and some lacked the conveniences we take for granted today. But that's exactly what made them so special. Each of these cars reminded drivers that motoring is not just about arriving at a destination, but about enjoying the journey. From the playful lightness of the Miata to the commanding presence of the Mustang and the timeless precision of the E30, they all delivered something that even the most advanced modern vehicles often struggle to provide: soul. In the end, technology will always move forward, but the essence of driving is timeless. And these classics will always prove it.